We live in such a wasteful world, the idea of recycling lessens our guilt and gives us a warm glow. As we drag our bins out for collection, it makes us feel like we're helping the environment. But there's a problem. We're being conned. Right now, Australia is stuck in an unsightly and growing recycling crisis. Take plastic waste. What you'd think would be easy to salvage and reuse. Well, the reality is most of it either ends up buried in the ground or worse. It's exported to countries like Malaysia, a place we're now treating like a garbage bin. This is an extraordinary, albeit not very pleasant, sight. Mountains and mountains of waste. But it's not just any garbage. This is good old Aussie rubbish. Plastic. Straight from your recycling bin to here, just outside of Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. You really have become a toilet for other people's rubbish.
In fact, we are a toilet.
Not surprisingly, the locals are none too pleased.
So please, take our rubbish home.
But this is the dirty truth of the big lie in recycling. At home in Melbourne's eastern suburbs,
take that down to the recycle bin.
We've been doing good, I guess.
Yeah.
Darren Hevron is teaching his 6-year-old son James about recycling their household rubbish.
Farm over here.
It should be an important lesson, separating the paper and the plastic. But in reality, these days, much of it is just a waste of time
The recycling on that one.
and energy.
Just tip it all in.
Just because we put it in the bin and shut the lid, goes out the front, we don't see it again, that doesn't mean it gets recycled.
Hayden Breeny tells it like it is.
This is not a sexy business, mate. This is rubbish. And the plastic is a pain in the arse. It is. I just put my hand up every time I see it.
He runs a commercial recycling business in southeast Melbourne. And every day his warehouse fills up with plastic waste he can't recycle.
Morally, we want to do something for it. But if I can't get rid of it, what am I meant to do? Eat it myself? What do? It's got to go to the tip.
So the majority of the plastic just ends up down the tip?
Oh yeah, for sure. If I could sell it, mate, we'd sell it. Don't worry about that.
With the amount of plastic in the system, it's a big issue, isn't it?
Huge amount, huge system.
Hayden's headache comes from what few realise about Australia's recycling industry. And that is, for the last 2 decades, it's been dependent on China. Up until January last year, most of our plastic waste was bought and shipped to their factories to be sorted and melted down into new plastic products. It was a system that worked well for us and the rest of the Western world, until China suddenly closed its doors. So the Chinese were the biggest player, weren't they? They were taking the vast bulk of our rubbish in Australia.
Absolutely, yes. It's been a tradition over the last 20 years. China has been sucking in resources from around the world, and recyclables are just that. They're just another resource.
Tim Yui is the CEO of the Southern Metropolitan Regional Council, one of 3 major recycling facilities in Western Australia.
This is about half a day's worth.
Half a day?
This is about half a day's worth. So the trucks will come here.
He says when China stopped taking Aussie plastic, bales of rubbish began piling up across the country. Not surprisingly, our recycling industry couldn't cope. When they decided to say no more, we're not taking any more of your rubbish, well, how did that affect us?
Nationally and globally, it made a massive impact because the amount of material that was going there, there aren't enough markets around the rest of the world to take it in. China had been taking
a staggering 125,000 tonnes of our plastic waste every year. Recycling companies scoured the world for new buyers. They found them in Southeast Asia, Malaysia in particular, where hundreds of Chinese operators relocated, setting up illegal factories and buying as much foreign garbage as they could get their hands on. When you throw this stuff into your recycle bin at home and you think you're doing the right thing, you might like to think again. Because if you ever needed proof that the system is totally broken, look no further than here in Malaysia, where dozens and dozens of these illegal processing sites mean that your rubbish often just gets dumped, buried, or even burned.
It is a nightmare. Look at the mess. These are illegal rubbish not supposed to be in Malaysia.
Malaysia is now the world's largest importer of plastic rubbish. Australia alone has dumped 71,000 tonnes of it in the past 12 months.
These are imported plastic rubbish from overseas, from Australia, from New Zealand. What is called recycling in Australia is not recycling at all. Look at the mess.
Local lawyer Lee Chi Kwang says Aussie household rubbish is helping fuel a criminal underworld in plastic recycling. He says sites like this one, on local farmland, are used by illegal operators to dump plastic scraps that they can't make money from. It's just one of the many ways these unscrupulous businessmen are harming the environment and the people of Malaysia.
It's a shame. It's a national shame because this kind of sites are scattered nationwide.
I think the majority of Australians would be horrified to know that their rubbish ends up here. It's embarrassing.
Well, to Australian, please recycle your own. Please help us by not sending our rubbish to our country.
It's a big business for those who actually do it illegally.
Malaysia's Environment Minister, Yeo Bee Yin, has shut down no less than 150 illegal factories since July last year. But she admits her country is fighting a losing battle, so long as Australia and other Western nations keep sending Malaysia their waste.
I really think that everyone should take care of their own rubbish.
I must admit, I find the scale of this to be quite shocking.
Yeah.
In a small country like this,
Yes.
It's enormous, isn't it?
Yes. And we have 400 containers right now in the custom that is
Full of plastic waste.
all plastics waste. And this is really what I want to do. I want to send them all back to the countries of origin and help to really ask you to solve your own problem. Yeah.
You just want to stop it at the port and say, take
Yes.
your rubbish back.
Yes.
Coming up, where is all this polluted water going to go?
Go to the river.
In the river?
Yeah.
But don't they use the river for drinking water?
Yeah.
Stopping the dirtbags. Cashing in on our broken system. So this is the final product. And why Malaysia has had enough of our garbage.
So please take our rubbish home.
That's next on 60 Minutes. As strange as it sounds, Australia's problem with plastic waste is best seen in Malaysia. That's because it's the current dumping ground for the refuse we refuse to recycle ourselves. But now, the Malaysians have had enough. Today, State Minister Ng Zee Han and his enforcement team are raiding an illegal factory fuelled by Aussie rubbish. So look at that.
So this is from Australia?
Cool Ridge, that's an Australian brand. There you
Okay.
go.
Okay,
Australian.
so this is very obvious. It is from Australia.
It's not long before we discover bags and bags of Australian household plastic.
This rubbish is from Australia.
Well, there's no doubt about it. That's all Australian brands. Look, Aussie natural spring
Aussie,
water.
Yes. So please take our rubbish home.
Take it back.
Take it back.
I'm sorry about that. I mean, my apologies, but this must be big business. I mean, look at the size of it.
Yep. And look at the amount.
It's inside clandestine factories like this one where our old water bottles and other plastic packaging ends up, being sorted by hand and washed with damaging chemicals. Where is all this polluted water going to go?
Go to the river. The river.
In the river?
Yeah.
But don't they use the river for drinking water?
Yeah.
Eventually, it's melted down into pellets to make new plastic products. So this is the final product?
Final product.
And what do they do with these pellets?
They can process it to make a plastic bag, another type of plastic product.
This illegal plant is shut down, but its closure makes little difference to the overall problem. There are hundreds of similar factories all across Malaysia. You've shut down 150 illegal plants.
Yeah.
And
Since
yet,
July.
Since last July.
Yeah.
And yet we have seen in the past few days
Yeah. There's still a lot more.
there are dozens more.
Yes, not dozens. There are a lot more. The scale is just so big.
Malaysia's Environment Minister, Yin, admits her country doesn't have the resources to police the unlawful trade in plastic waste. So her country has now joined Vietnam, Thailand, Indonesia and India in imposing strict restrictions on imports and new permits. And she warns it's only the beginning. Malaysia's doors will soon close on Australian rubbish for good.
I do not blame ordinary Australian. I think most of the people do not know this is happening. But now that we know that this is happening, then we need a solution.
So now you need our help to deal with our rubbish. That's ironic, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's quite a shocking thing to say. For a developing country to have to turn around and say, Australia, take back your own rubbish.
Yes.
Malaysia's tough stance means back home, Australia's recycling industry is running out of options. Many waste companies have been stockpiling unwanted plastic as they search for new buyers in Asia. But it's no solution for a crisis that grows by the truckload. Do you think when people put their recycle bin out like this, they think that every bit of it's going to be recycled?
Sure.
In Melbourne, Port Phillip Mayor Dick Gross says his council was one of more than 20 recently affected when recycling giant SKM was forced to close its gates, following several incidents where stockpiled material caught fire. In a matter of weeks, Port Phillip Council alone sent 650 tonnes of recycled waste to landfill.
The community is entitled to think that everything that goes in a recycle bin is recycled.
But it's not, is it?
Our council's recycler closed its doors because it was a fire hazard. And in that time, there was recycling going into landfill. And it was a betrayal of what we aspire to do.
The betrayal around Australia runs much deeper than that. These photos, taken last week in Victoria, show household plastic stacked 3 metres high in the warehouses of multiple recycling companies. Hayden Breeney, who runs a recycling business, says much of it will likely end up buried in the ground. I would have thought the public perception is that when you take that recycle bin to the curb, you think you've done the right thing.
Pontius Pilate, I wash my hands, my friend. It's done.
Or in a nice way.
Someone else's problem. I've done the right thing. I've made certain that that plastic and that inverted commas recyclable stuff goes in that bin. It's then up to the council, state government, federal government, regulation to do something about it. And so at the moment, it's a challenge because I think everyone's putting their head under the doona.
But they should be, shouldn't they? Because this
Absolutely.
Isn't this the most basic of environmental problems?
There should be someone in here saying, "Hey, listen, mate, how can I help you? How can I help you?" Get to the coalface, find out.
The waste industry is really good at transporting. The waste industry is really good at baling, and they've been really good at shipping it overseas. What we haven't been good is taking that next step on shore, on here in Australia.
David Hodge is one of the few recyclers in our country who is actually recycling plastic.
This is making an end product that then gets sold in Australia.
His business, Plastic Forests, takes the most contaminated waste you can imagine and turns it into new plastic products.
I think most people in Australia feel lied to. I think they feel disappointed. 90+% of people do want to recycle, and they need to be enabled to be able to do that. That's why we need more businesses like Plastic Forests to keep the plastic as plastic and not just sort of put it in a hole in the ground.
Why haven't we got more people doing it here rather than shipping it offshore?
We haven't built the infrastructure. We haven't thought ahead. There's been no planning. There's been no forethought. And now we're here and we're drowning in plastic.
We're finding lots of plastic now.
Yeah, well, there's heaps of plastic everywhere, isn't
A
there?
nation drowning in plastic is something 6-year-old James Heverin sees every time he goes to the beach.
Hey, no. Oh, here's some. Yeah.
He does what he can to fix it, but it's a losing battle. By the time he grows up, there'll be more plastic in the ocean than fish.
Ooh, that is a clothes peg.
When you see that plastic down the beach, what do you think when you see it on the beach, the plastic?
I just really pick it up,
What does the plastic do to the fish?
kill it,
Really?
and kill birds.
So you think it's pretty dangerous?
Yeah.
Good job today, mate. There's another one.
Hello, I'm Liam Bartlett. Thanks for watching. To keep up with the latest from 60 Minutes Australia, make sure you subscribe to our channel. You can also download the 9Now app for full episodes and other exclusive 60 Minutes content.